And we'd like to welcome to Soul today, Suzanne Edwards. Thank you very much for coming into the RPPFM studios and appearing on Soul to Soul.
Thank you, Steve. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Now, you work as a teacher, and you actually do many things, but principally you're a teacher of Transcendental Meditation.
That's correct.
Tell us a bit about what you do there.
Well, I work for myself and also through an international, Australia-wide, nationwide, and right around the world organisation where we teach meditation to at-risk groups as well as to individuals in the general public who really want to learn how to meditate.
Right, and you've been doing this for several years, I believe.
I've been doing this for about 20 years. We won't say exactly, but yes, a bit over 20 years now I've been teaching Transcendental Meditation. Yeah.
And what got you into that in the first place?
Well, I always had an inner sort of feeling that there was more to life. Mm-hmm. And although I was enjoying my career and doing quite well in it, I felt that there was something more. And I worked in the fashion industry where you make everything look good on the outside. Mm. And I thought, well, this is great, but, the people on the inside still need some attention. Mm. And I was out of the country more than in it, very busy travelling, and I needed something to help me. And I tried lots of different types of techniques, having an interest in personal development. And so I was lucky enough to learn Transcendental Meditation from a teacher here in Melbourne, who I'm still friends with. So I learned it and I noticed it was an immediate difference and it benefited me enormously. And within 4 years of doing full-time training, I'd given away the fashion industry and I was a TM teacher. And so I've done it for the last 20 years.
Was that a difficult transition going from, shall we say, somewhat of a superficial sort of role
superficial, just a tad.
Just
a tad superficial. Now I say to people, I used to make people look good on the outside. Mm. Now I make them feel good on the inside.
And that's obviously a lot more rewarding too.
It's absolutely more rewarding. It's awesome because you actually get to train people in something that they're independent in. So they don't need to come back to me to have that experience, and they can meditate for the rest of their lives once they've been through a course to learn TM, and they can change themselves completely.
Now, obviously, when you started TM, you weren't thinking, I'm going to be a teacher for the next 20 years.
Oh, no, I was thinking this will mean I won't have too much jet lag, this will be great. And I had heard that it was great for reversal of ageing, and I thought, oh, yes, well, in the fashion industry, we have to keep on our ball, don't we? So I had all these other very superficial ideas, but I'd always had a lifelong understanding there was much more to me than this body, than this life, and this life path that was very almost 1950s. You're going to get married, have 2.5 kids and do this and this. And I knew there was more. Around the age of 21, I remember reading a book by Shirley MacLaine. And I read this book and I thought this was the path less travelled, and I thought, someone else out there understands me. There's a soul and they get it, they understand. And within 3 months, I'd changed everything in my life, thrown it all aside.
So what was the tipping point that took you from practitioner to teacher?
One day, someone who I got very involved and went to group meditation and all of that, which is available once you've learnt TM, and I really enjoyed it. And someone came up to me and said, look, there's this wonderful course and you would really enjoy it. And it's part of this knowledge of Vedic knowledge, which TM is part of Ayurveda. And you could become a consultant in Ayurvedic medicine.
Now, explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so TM comes from the Vedic tradition. It comes from a tradition of knowledge. And part of that tradition is this knowledge of transcendental meditation. And then there's lots of other wonderful knowledge like Stapatra architecture and Ayurvedic medicine. And so I actually got into it initially to become a consultant in Ayurvedic medicine. Right. And I threw in my job, and within 2 days after leaving, I was on a plane and I went to New Zealand, and for 4 months I sat with an Indian Vaidya and I learned how to take my pulse and how to understand all of the doshas and individualise body type people and become a health educator.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, that also involves using herbs and oils and that sort of thing.
That's right, and massage and all these sorts of things. It's a very holistic system of healthcare that's become popular. Now, when I did this training 25 years ago, you'd say, what? And people had no idea. But now you say Ayurveda, and I'm like, hang on, they know what I'm talking about. The same with TM, and so I became an Ayurvedic consultant, and the basis of health is consciousness. Consciousness creates physiology. And so you need to attend to consciousness. It's that essential intelligence which fluctuates within itself and creates all thought and all matter, our physiology. And so it's really, really important to keep that lively, and it's the primary aspect of Ayurvedic medicine. So I started talking on Ayurvedic medicine and working with patients on Ayurvedic medicine. That was great, but I didn't understand enough about the consciousness side, although I was a TM practitioner.
Yes.
So I then decided, okay, I better really top this off and go and become a TM teacher as well.
Right. And how did that change your life?
Well, then really I became fully able to completely understand the depth of the knowledge and the way to explain it to other people. And so I opened a centre in South Yarra, this is about 20 years ago now, and started teaching Transcendental Meditation there. And it was wonderful because I didn't have to work in the fashion industry and travel from country to country. I could focus myself fully on that. And for my own personal evolution, that was wonderful. But also it meant that I was able to help a lot of people and put the knowledge out there in a way that was relatively easy for people to understand and apply in their lives.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you were looking forward to not having to travel as much with the fashion industry. Because I believe you actually still travel quite a bit.
I do travel quite a bit. I've just opened a centre with my colleague Robert Johnson and I. We're co-directors of a new centre opposite the Shrine in the middle of Melbourne.
Oh, right.
So right in the middle of Melbourne, St Kilda Road. So we have Morning to Meditation Centre down here where I've been teaching on the peninsula for many years. And so now I'm up and down and all over the place, as well as doing great things like this. So yeah, life is busy and life is very dynamic. And TM comes from that traditional knowledge of how to give yourself deep rest. And the deeper the rest, the more dynamic the activity can be. And so the founder of TM, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, used to always say this. He used to say, more rest, deeper, more profound rest in your nervous system, and then you can go out and be very, very effective in the day. Enjoy 200% of life. And so what he meant by that was that 100% inner spiritual life, developing yourself for enlightenment, which is a neurophysiological event.
Yes.
And you do that through rest, through meditation. And then given that profound rest, then you can go out and be much more dynamic in the day and enjoy. I mean, your perception will be clearer, so you'll enjoy everything more, and more subtle qualities of events will be more enjoyable to your nervous system as well.
No doubt you've experienced that over the years yourself.
Yeah, there's a normal, natural development of your nervous system, calmness that's maintained even in the midst of dynamic activity,
Yes.
a refinement of perception so that you really enjoy visual and auditory and touch. Instead of just being either a kinesthetic or a visual or an auditory, you start to become multifaceted because you're growing a brain that can do all those things at once.
Or holistic, if you like, as a lot of people term it these days.
That's right. Yeah.
I remember first coming across TM in a little place in Brunswick, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And back in the late 70s, early 80s, we're going back quite a few years there now. And they were obviously working on a very shoestring budget, and they had bits of material hanging up in the windows and that sort of thing.
Okay, yes.
And I remember thinking, oh, they're a bit strange, those guys in there. They're a bit hippie-ish or something,
Yes, in the 80s, definitely.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
You didn't have your shoulder pads on.
No, that's right, yeah. And now that whole image has changed now. It's actually a lot. I was looking at your website, and it's very, very slick. There's not a hippie inside.
Yeah.
It's very nice. What's caused that change, do you think, in presentation? Is it because of the people that are attracted to it now, or is it because it's more of a wider field of scope?
It's a really good question. The thing is that meditation now is mainstream. And when I started teaching meditation 20 years ago, people thought they were coming for a yoga class.
Oh, right.
And they used to turn up to learn TM on the first day with their lycra things on.
Oh, right.
And I used to say, no, this isn't about the body. This is about the mind, because the mind leads the body. And so people now, when they come to learn meditation, they come knowing that meditation is good for you. And that's largely because of the research that's been published on specifically Transcendental Meditation. And there's so much research that's been published that it's become broadly known that, yes, meditation is good for you. Now, not all meditations are the same, but yes, meditation is good for you. And so different things will give different benefits. And because TM is giving benefits on all areas of life, anyone can learn. So it's important that you relate to people where they're at.
Yes.
We teach TM in prisons.
Oh, really? I didn't know
We
that.
teach TM in the army. We actually teach to soldiers who are coming back in the US who have PTSD.
Wow.
And so we've had that program running for several years now. It's been so effective at preventing problems like depression and suicide. They were losing more soldiers once they'd returned
Yes, I'd heard that. Yeah.
than they were losing in the field. And so we brought in this program, Warrior Wellness, and we started teaching Transcendental Meditation to all of the returning soldiers and their families, because we don't live in isolation.
Yes. Yes.
And so when a soldier would come back, then it would be a big impact into his family as well, that the whole family learned. And this prevented the rate of suicide and depression and alcohol abuse and substance abuse enormously. So now we have a situation where they've put us into the academies, training them in Transcendental Meditation before they go.
Right.
Prevention, we love it.
Prevention rather than cure.
Yeah,
I like
prevention
that a lot.
rather than the cure.
I
And
knew
so it's
that
great.
TM had really sparked a lot of research, especially in the 90s there. They were doing a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, that they're
And
doing
of course,
that?
they've got centres all around the world, and I noticed that there's like 50 or 60 around Australia, something like that now.
Not quite that many. There's about 15 around Australia.
Right,
There's
right.
about 170 in the US.
Right.
So there's many, many centres. And a lot of teaching is now done also to at-risk populations. So we go into prisons, we go into homeless centres. And so when someone learns TM, the course fee they pay is contributed to our fund so we can go out and teach at-risk people. So as you were saying, you know, people everywhere understand that there's a value now in developing inside. And what's inside, if we can change what's inside, it'll change what radiates out. And so even in homeless centres, in rehabilitation centres, we go into family abuse centres where women are there, and we go in and teach them TM. And it's like turning on a light. All the darkness runs away. So when you enliven consciousness by transcending, not sitting on the surface contemplating and concentrating and thinking and making a mood, but actually settle down and experience finer and finer and finer layers of your mind. Nearest to the finest is the infinite, that unboundedness once you've transcended thought. And so experiencing that, it enlivens all those qualities of harmony, intelligence and creativity, and then people find new ways. They might go back to the generational poverty once they're released from prison. They may be on one of our programs where we can actually teach to juvenile offenders, and they learn TM and then they go out on parole and they track them for us and do lovely research showing that they don't reoffend.
I was going to ask if you had like
Yeah.
a support service there, yeah.
Yeah, so we work with all those hard knots of stress in society because the collective consciousness, as we know, is global, and we all affect it. We all contribute to it. And some people are very hard knots of stress. And so it's great to go in and be able to relieve them of that, to give them that ability to transcend. And when the mind settles down and transcends thought, then the body gets profound rest. And that really deep rest just dissolves all the stress.
Yes, indeed. And it's interesting too that I've noticed in recent years that the medical profession have actually come on board a bit. And I thought the most lovely quote I saw was one, we won't mention his name, medical professional said,
Yes.
I don't really understand why it works,
Yes.
but I know it does.
Yes. He also said, that same person, that
know who I'm talking
yes,
about.
it fixes things that we didn't think were fixable.
Yes, exactly.
And this is what's fascinating, because when we transcend and enliven that intelligence which creates the body, then what happens is we wake up the DNA, RNA, proteins, cells, the whole body. We wake up that intelligence which creates the matter. And so it remembers how to operate properly, because we change every cell in this wonderful thing just about every year.
Yes.
And yet that bung knee from that football accident, Steve's still there. You know, you
That's
keep
right.
recreating it again and again and again. And you think, well, hang on, I've replaced every single physical cell.
Why is that still there?
Why is that still there? And this is consciousness. And consciousness creates physiology. So when we transcend, we enliven that, and then we bring that out into the physiology, and that is seen as these changes. But like you said, yeah, there are a lot of research that's been done. There's large studies were done by the National Institute of Health in America. They spent about $20 million US just studying TM, and we love them for that. And so what they did is they looked at people who'd had major cardiovascular events. So they were seeing a cardiologist, and all these people were African Americans, and they were average age of 54 years, and they weren't the most healthy. Most of them were at least overweight, if not obese. So these people had all had a cardiovascular event, and so they took about 1,000 of them and randomly selected them to learn TM. They tracked them for 5 years. And what they could see is the people who had randomly been selected to go through a TM course and to learn properly, they could compare them to other people of the same age, same gender, same socioeconomic status, same physical status, and they were 48% less likely to die.
Wow. That's impressive, isn't it?
It was really impressive, and it also reduced their blood pressure down in 90 days, the same as it would as if they were taking medication.
That's fascinating.
And they said, this can't be true. How can meditation possibly do these physical things? And then they researched and compared this specific technique, Transcendental Meditation, to other techniques. And they said, hang on, it's twice as effective. So now the American Heart Association recommends specifically Transcendental Meditation. So we love them as well. And they recommend it specifically for blood pressure and problems with the cardiovascular system and other areas as well.
I'm also impressed by what happens in the atmosphere around people that meditate. And you probably know this better than I do, the statistics about how if you get a whole town to meditate, the crime rate drops.
That's right, yeah.
And all sorts of things.
That's right. Because every thought we have radiates out. Every single thought. So what's inside the style of functioning in your nervous system, it creates that energy and that spreads out, because there's not a little island here. We're all interconnected,
exactly,
and consciousness is a field. So if you're thinking about a mood of being relaxed and calm, well, that has a certain effect. It's kind of like burning wood, I guess. If you can transcend and be that field of consciousness, not think about it, be it.
Be it.
Then it's like an atom bomb going off. You're very, very powerful. And so when you are completely still, that inner, silent, transcendental awareness, automatically you're enlivening that field of consciousness, and that radiates out. So when we get 1% of any business, any school, we teach a lot in secondary schools, any community practicing Transcendental Meditation, that effect will spill out and affect the brainwave of someone who has no interest in spirituality.
I like that.
They can't help it.
I like that.
So they're on our side and they don't even realise it. So we did some great research to show this, even in war-torn areas, where when the group practicing Transcendental Meditation coming together, because when you sit together, about 1.5 meters apart from each other in a group, then you're sitting in a pool of coherence, aren't you? Because what's inside radiates out. So, meditators love to be together. Spiritual people love to be together. We say birds of a feather flock together, and we do. But the thing is that if we can meditate together and transcend together, then we're very, very powerful. And then we only need 1% of the community to do it, and we can change all of these parameters within the society. So what we'll find is that the crime rate will go down, the hospital admissions will go down, and the positive trends will increase. And so then we have an environment when everyone can think and act in a way that's more positive, more creative, more spiritual.
Let's move back to the healing side of things. If I was to come to you with some sort of complaint, how would you first address that situation?
First thing, as I said, is consciousness.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter what the issue or the problem is. We don't need to analyse it or understand it. It's like having a dark room. If you add a light and another light and keep on adding lights, it'll be fully lit, enlightened. And so in that way, if we can train someone to transcend, then when someone's experiencing the transcendent, that pure, unbounded, silent, harmonious state, it will wake up their nervous system. And so it doesn't seem to matter what the issue is. And we all have issues.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
We all have these unconscious things that have been there, traumas, things that have occurred. Even just someone saying no when we're a child can be held in the nervous system. Now, those stresses, if you want to call it that, what they are is they're unprocessed experiences. And those experiences, what they do is they change the chemical and the physical structure of the nervous system. We call it stress, but actually what it is, it's a physical reality. It's twisted nerve endings and tight muscles, and it's the changes where our cortisol levels are going up very high, our noradrenaline and our dopamine, the happy ones, are going down. And so these changes are physical things. If someone can have their mind settle down and transcend effortlessly with Transcendental Meditation, then the body will follow.
Yes.
Because when your mind's busy, you can't even go to sleep. When your mind settles down, your body will follow and you'll get really profound rest. Now, with this specific technique, Transcendental Meditation, the rest is about twice as deep as deep sleep. Now, you've never had that deep rest. So your body's going to go, fantastic.
Give me more
I'm
of
going
this.
to increase those dopamine levels and I'm going to put down that cortisol and change the blood pressure and I'm going to untwist those nerve endings and rejuvenate the whole system.
Yeah.
So TM switches on the body's self-healing mechanisms. It creates a situation where the body gets profound rest and it neutralises the impairing effects, the deleterious effects of stress and strain and fatigue.
Fantastic. Now, how does that blend with the other side of the healing that you do?
The Ayurvedic side?
Ayurvedic.
Yeah, so Maharishi Ayurveda, and we call it Maharishi Ayurveda because it's consciousness as well as all the herbs and diet and massage and all of that, which is brilliant. But it's so much more powerful when you've also got the people who are massaging you,
Yes.
the people who are producing the herbs, and your own ability to transcend, then it becomes really rich. And so, the mind leads the body. So number one, we say, the mind, work with the mind. But then, there might be some patch in the room that's still a bit dark. We're adding lights by transcending. Every time we transcend, we enliven the body. But if there's some patches of darkness, some areas where the body's intelligence isn't, then we could also nourish it. It's like giving your garden sunshine, but it might also be good to weed it.
Right.
Sunshine will, purify and nourish everything. If we can transcend, we nourish consciousness, we nourish everything in the body, but there might be some weeds. And so we could go in, with Ayurvedic medicine and we could use these different types of intelligence of nature. Those plants, they have that lively intelligence in their matter. And if we can preserve that intelligence in a way that it's intact, through the way we grow it, the way we process it, and then the way we preserve it, and then make a synergy of those herbs so we could make it go in the right spot in your body. We don't want it to go everywhere, just in that spot.
Just in that spot.
Then we could get it to eat out the arthritis out of those joints, or we could get it to improve the digestion or nourish the brain. And so sometimes taking some herbs is a great way to do it as well. But really, consciousness is the way to go.
Yes. It's interesting because I've actually heard people say before that whether it's Ayurvedic or whether it's other types of physical medicines, they're really just a way of getting people to feel like they're getting something to help them get into the consciousness side of things. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would really agree with that. I often think of it being like a seesaw. If your seesaw is horizontal, then you're in balance, okay? But most people are down on the ground.
Yes.
And they're looking up this slope and they're going, how am I going to get down up that slope? It's going to take my self-determination and my discipline to eat the right thing, to do the right thing, say the right thing, react the right way. My frontal lobes, we want them switched on, but they're switching off because I'm stressed. So it's an uphill battle to go against your own state of consciousness and awareness. But you can use these things like diet and herbs and these beautiful Ayurvedic medicines and Transcendental Meditation and developing consciousness to tip the seesaw in the right direction. So it's becoming more balanced.
Right.
And really, when you add a few of these modalities in and you get balanced, you only have to have the seesaw tip down the other end a little bit and it's a downhill run. And that's what happens because every thought we have has to go through our nervous system. So you can have the diet given to you by the naturopath or the Ayurvedic consultant, and you know what to do in your head. You have the knowledge, but you don't implement it. And the reason is because you're going against the quality of your nervous system. But if you can just tip that seesaw down a little bit, then what will happen is that automatically you'll be in a situation where you'll desire what's good for you. And what that means is that when the thoughts bubble up through the nervous system and they burst on your conscious layer of your mind, they're going through a more balanced nervous system. And your nervous system acts like an interference pattern for your thoughts.
True.
So you can be driving along and you can drive around the corner near here at 3RPP and you can think, oh, I'll go into McDonald's and I'll eat some of that stuff. We might not call it food. We could do that. But what will happen is that, you know, that's because the nervous system's stressed. There's time pressure, there's worries, and the cortisol levels all out. And you've got the diet, you've got the knowledge, but you're not implementing it. Now, if you can have the mind settle down and the body follow and get profound deep rest because you're transcending, then that's going to dissolve the stress out of the nervous system. Then outside of meditation, in the day, when you're driving home and you're hungry and it's 5 o'clock and you're thinking, what will I have today? The desire that will bubble through that more balanced nervous system will say, let's go and buy some vegetables and let's go home and make stir fry.
Yeah.
And you desire to do that just as much as you desire to go into the drive-through. So it becomes easy to implement that style of lifestyle that's going to be healthy and natural and productive. Because making yourself do things, it ain't fun.
Yeah, the most difficult part that I've seen that people have challenges with is things like addictions, obviously, old belief structures, habits, that sort of thing. They get used to programming their body to be doing certain things, and to change that, to go in a different direction, can be quite difficult for some people.
It's extremely difficult because you're going against your nervous system, which means you're going against the synaptic connections in the brain, and you're going against the chemical structure of your nervous system that says, hang on, it's nearly 5 o'clock and I've got an AK record that says that something unpleasant's going to happen at 5 o'clock because my alcoholic dad's going to walk in the door. So we have these unconscious held belief systems that are there. We don't need to know about it. We really don't need to analyse it, and thinking about it only makes it all again. So rather than talking about it or trying to unwrap it and rationalise it, it's much better to give your body a rest and dissolve the archaic chemical structure that was created when that experience occurred out of the nervous system. So then you remember the event, but it doesn't overshadow you anymore.
It's interesting you say that. I found in the early 90s when I was starting my own practices, there was a real trend at the time for people to take people back through, you know, their pains and their agonies and their difficult emotional times. And I argued that was probably not a good idea.
You were a bit smarter then, weren't you?
I wasn't very popular, I can tell you.
Because a lot of people making good money out of that.
Well, that's right. But like I used to say to people at the time, look, it's not about reliving difficult times. It's about putting your mind where you want to be at and concentrating on that, because the more you focus on what you want, the more chance you have of getting it. You know, that was the way I was taught, at least, anyway. Obviously you agree.
Yeah, I do. But I think it goes a little bit further. You know, you can have positive thinking and you can say, no, I won't go through the drive-in. I'll go and buy the vegetables and I'll eat them. But the thing is that it takes a lot of self-discipline because it's not natural. Now, the natural thing of the mind is to go to something more enjoyable, more fulfilling, more delightful. And that's not these surface gross layers. But we use these behaviours, as you said, it might be eating too much or staying up too late. It might be something as simple as wanting to be on the computer to find something to help you. But we all have these behaviours, and it can lead to things like addiction. It can lead to smoking and alcohol and illicit drug use, recreational drug use. These things all occur as ways of mitigating our stress. But going over it and talking about it just recreates it all again.
Yes, it does.
So I'm really not in favour of that. I know that it's a great way of looking at it, but being positive about it doesn't change it either.
I think it tends to just going over and over it again tends to reinforce the victim mentality as well, where you see a lot of people. I've seen people go from modality to modality to modality
yes.
just because they sort of can't be a
Yes.
victim anymore here, so they now go over here where they can start again from scratch.
They want an excuse to say, I've done everything.
Yes.
Therefore, I've done everything and I don't need to do any more, and I can stay with my habitual behaviour.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is a great excuse a lot of people use. A lot of people come to an introductory talk on Transcendental Meditation and they're course junkies. They've done lots of stuff, but they're not implementing it.
Yes.
Because it's too hard to do. They didn't see a benefit straight away. They didn't understand it. They weren't taught properly. Whatever their reasoning is. These people, they've got hard, deep knots of stress. Thinking about it, making a mood of it being different, isn't different. It's not a thought that will change your life. It's being that will change your life.
Exactly true, yeah.
And so being natural, being who you are, developing your individuality, feeling comfortable in your own skin, being self-referral so that you're living life, you're in the movie, but you know you're in a movie, not you're lost in the movie.
Yeah,
It's a big difference. So looking at an event, maybe you've had a car accident, and if you're sitting there and you're turning right and the blinker's blinking and you're thinking, oh, I remember, when the car nearly hit me when I was sitting here in the middle of the road, and your body's flooding with chemicals. To have the ability to transcend and dissolve that out of the nervous system, then you're sitting in the car and the heart isn't beating. The cortisol isn't rising. You're free of it. You remember the car accident, but the overwhelming effect isn't there. That's freedom. Then you can automatically start to live differently and you're comfortable with friends driving you around. It's a very great freedom that comes when we can dissolve stress properly out of the nervous system, not just package it and say, I've processed that, I've thought about that, I've analysed that. That's not a way of really doing it. That's packaging it. I would much rather people learn to transcend and dissolve the stress out of the nervous system, because your body wants that to happen.
Yes, indeed.
It's its desire to progress and evolve and become better and better. That's what the whole nature of life is, to evolve and grow.
Exactly.
And there's lots of knowledge out there, but some people are very fortunate, I think, and they get to learn TM.
Now, as a teacher, and as a teacher for many years now, you would have noticed, probably as I have, that society's become very sort of quick fix, and it's sort of like sound bites, and it's very move on quickly sort of stuff. People don't linger anymore. Do you find that that's made it more difficult for people coming to something like TM for the first time?
I think what's happened is that there's been a general understanding, because of the research on transcendental meditation, that meditation's good. And I think that permeates right down through all areas of society now. But what's happened is that all meditations are not the same. And so also what's come along is not an understanding that this research was done on this technique, so if you want this effect, go and learn that. Therefore, people have thought that meditation's difficult. It's going to take a long time and not everyone can do it. I've got to find a teacher and find the one that suits me, and they've got a lot of excuses. But it's just fragmented knowledge. And so as meditation's become more popular, there have been more people jumping on the bandwagon, inventing their own stuff. Now, I didn't invent TM, and I haven't changed it. I was fortunate enough to learn from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi exactly how to teach the technique and to be trained to teach it exactly the way he would. And all teachers of TM teach it exactly the same way all over the world, only the language changes. And this really standardised way of teaching TM means that no TM teacher is ever going to have a bad day. But there's a lot of people out there who are experimenting and changing and mixing things up on their own individual ideas about how we can work with this most profound and powerful tool, our brain. Now, it is an amazing, amazing mechanism. And I prefer not to muck around with it and experiment with it. I prefer to do something that's been proven to work scientifically, but also has a very long tradition of being a very profound and accurate way of enlivening the full potential of the brain. And so people think meditation's difficult because they've had bad experience with other types of concentration, contemplation, controlling the mind, being mindful of my thoughts and analysing them, all these ways that are popularised. But they've come up making it a difficult, long road. Whereas it's actually only takes a few seconds for the mind to dive within and transcend, and boom, you've got samadhi. And everyone says, wow, it's going to take 10 years to get that. No. It's the purity of the knowledge. And so we are in an age like sound bites and all these things. That's great. But also it's an age where there's a lot of communication, which is great. We have beautiful websites and there's lots of YouTube videos and there's great things that we can listen to and look at. But it's very easy for knowledge to get distorted and mixed.
Yes.
So it is important to make sure that when we're dealing with our mind, our brain, our nervous system, our evolution, that we go for things that we know that are well established and deal with people who walk the talk.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
It's really important.
One last question about group meditation.
Yeah.
I know from different meditation groups that I've run before, a comment that's come up many times is people say, while I was in the group it was fantastic and I felt the energy and it was all happening for me, but then as soon as I went home I didn't feel it anymore and it wasn't really working for me.
Yeah.
Do you come across that as well in your
A lot
practice?
of people who come to the free introductory talks, they say this.
Yeah.
They say, do you have group meditation? We say, yeah, we offer free group meditation once you've learnt Transcendental Meditation anywhere around the world for life, free. And they go, wow, because I need to be in a group. And we say, no, actually, it's just that you're hiking on the coherence in the group, because if you're not transcending, you're just sitting there concentrating, contemplating, analysing your thoughts, or following your breath in and out, or focusing on a part of your body, all these sort of things. If you're not doing that in a group, you're not going to even feel relaxed. It's only when you get a group together with the intention, then you can ride on the group collective consciousness and have a better experience. But it's not really practicable for us to be in a group unless we're in an ashram.
Exactly.
So we ain't in ashrams. We're out there in the world. We want to live 200% of life. And so it's really, really important that you learn something that's more profound so that you can sit on a train and transcend.
Yes.
I taught a lady on Monday, and where are we? We're on Tuesday, and she came this morning and she said to me, I didn't quite have time to do my 20 minutes of TM, before I left the house, because she had to come into the city to see me early. She said, I did it on the tram on the way here. She said, I was amazed that I could sit on the second day of learning to meditate, and I could sit on the tram and I felt so rested, and I didn't even hear the things going on around me. And then I thought, I might miss my stop, but I didn't care. So, if we can transcend and meditate properly, then we can do it anywhere. And that's why we can have the bell ring and the Change Within program, and we've got secondary schools that are just raucous places. I mean, you and I know that from when we were at school, but imagine what it's like now.
Yeah.
And so what we have now is this situation where the bell rings and the kids just sit down and they just all sit in the corridors, the doors, the dorms, the faculty, the staff. Everyone meditates in a big group. So when you're transcending in a group, it's just blissful.
Yes. It's interesting, actually. My teacher said to me then, it's funny, the tram reference, he said, you'll be able to meditate on a tram in Burke Street.
Yes.
I remember thinking that was crazy, because I thought, no, you have to have a quiet room
place,
and all that sort of
have
stuff.
a mood and light a candle and some incense and sit in lotus before you can do anything.
Well, I actually even went on a retreat out in the country, and I was on this retreat, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to go off from the group and by myself, and I found a nice spot, and I thought, okay, this is it, and I sat down, I sat there, and the tree started moving and creaking in the wind, and birds started singing. A plane went over. I thought, the country's noisy.
No, it's outrageous. I can't meditate with all this noise. Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's because you're focusing.
Exactly.
You're trying to use one part of your brain to control another part of the brain.
I was going to say,
And when you're trying to hold the mind on one thing, it takes a lot of effort. And that effort is opposed to relaxation. And so what happens is that it's like, for me, I think of it like your mind like an ocean. Trying to hold the mind on one thing and concentrating, it's like trying to tread water. You can tread water, but it takes a lot of effort, and that effort keeps you on the top.
Exactly.
So when you concentrate, it's like that. You're trying to hold the mind still. You're trying to keep it still, and you use one part of your brain to control another part of your brain. And it's difficult. And you will try and want to have concentration requires no secondary hearing anything, feeling anything. And so all of these mechanisms have come in to wear earphones and just listen to the tape, etc., to try and reduce the amount of activity in the brain in a way of using concentration. Luckily, I can teach a 4-year-old TM. because there's no concentration.
Needed, yes.
And so that's why you can do it anywhere. It's very portable. Other techniques try and use things like contemplation. So these are tapes that you listen to,
Yes,
or it might be guided meditations.
Yep.
Exactly. And in this, you don't try and hold the mind still. You let it roam around in the realms of the meaning of whatever you're thinking about. But it's more like swimming up and down on that ocean of the mind, exploring new avenues.
Yeah.
And, it's great. You think, we'll go to the Bahamas, it'll be perfect. And he'll look like that and I'll look like this and the whole thing will be wonderful, won't it? Dopamine levels are going up now. But the whole thing is that you're still thinking. It's on that thinking sensory layer.
Yeah.
So whether you're using concentration or contemplation, you're still using the surface conscious layer of the mind. And you're still participating in the process.
Yes.
With Transcendental Meditation, you dive. And the mind, when you dive, you just jump in and water. You don't do anything. You sink because of gravity. Gravity for the mind is that infinite value. And so what happens in TM is that you transcend and experience finer and finer and finer layers of the mind, and transcend, and the whole body is enjoying this process and saying, more please, more please.
More of that,
this is what I want. Not interested in the outside. So even in the forest, like you're saying, you don't hear the birds, and then you might hear them again, and then, wow, I'm not hearing those birds because my mind's completely inner awareness, enjoying the process of transcending. And so then you transcend the process of meditation altogether. So TM is not a content of doing something. TM is a process of transcending even the process of meditation itself and experiencing that unboundedness of our own inner awareness.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Now, if people want to find you or would like to experience this for themselves, how can they best contact you?
All around the world, the best thing is to look on the internet and go tm.org. That'll get you most countries all around the world. In Australia, tm.org.au, surprise, surprise. On the Mornington Peninsula, it's morningtonmeditation.com.au. But really, if you want to put in Transcendental Meditation, you'll find out everything you need to find. Yeah.
Suzanne, thank you so much for coming in and
Thank
talking
you. I've
to us on
enjoyed
Soul to
chatting to
Soul.
you so
It's been
much. You're
wonderful.
just a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Soul to Soul.